What are you doing here? Answer me!
I work here. I'm getting my belongings.
You don't look like you belong here. Do you have ID?
Yes.
Now.
Before I reach for it, why am I being detained?
Stop arguing! Turn around!
I'm not resisting. My hands are visible.
Hands behind your back! Now!
Officer, you're escalating this without...
The dash camera activates automatically as the patrol car slows behind a dark gray sedan stopped at a red light on the edge of a quiet commercial district. It's just after 9:40 p.m. on a Tuesday. No traffic. No pedestrians. No calls pending on the radio. Officer Mark Ellison has been on the force for 11 years. Long enough to feel bored. Long enough to trust his instincts more than procedure. Long enough to believe he can spot trouble before it happens. The reason he gives later will sound harmless. Suspicious behavior. But at this moment, before any paperwork, before any justification is invented, what actually happens is simple. Ellison flicks on his lights. The sedan pulls over immediately. No hesitation. No delay. The driver parks cleanly against the curb, puts the car in park, and keeps both hands visible on the steering wheel. That detail will matter later. The body camera clicks on as Ellison opens his door. Inside the car sits a black man in his early 30s. Well-dressed button-down shirt, no hoodie, no music playing. The interior is clean. The windows are down. The engine is off. Ellison approaches slowly, hand resting near his holster, though nothing in front of him remotely justifies it. Evening, he says. His tone is flat, controlled. Not aggressive, but not friendly either. You know why I stopped you? The driver answers immediately. No, sir. That answer is also important later. Ellison leans slightly toward the window, scanning the interior longer than necessary. His eyes linger. He's looking for something that confirms a feeling he hasn't yet articulated. Where are you headed tonight? The question comes before any explanation for the stop. That's the first deviation from protocol, minor, easy to dismiss. But it's recorded. Home, the man says. Just got off work. Ellison nods slowly, as if weighing the truth of that statement, though he has no evidence to doubt it. License and registration. The driver does not argue. He does not ask why. He does not reach suddenly. He says one sentence first. My wallet's in my back pocket. Registration's in the glove box. Is that okay? Again, this will matter later. Ellison gives a short nod. Go ahead. The driver moves deliberately. Slow, careful. Wallet out, registration retrieved, hands return to the wheel. Ellison takes the documents and steps back toward his cruiser. At T's point, a stop could still end normally. A warning, a vague explanation. A wasted 2 minutes. That's how most unjustified stops survive scrutiny by ending. Before anyone notices they were unjustified, but Ellison doesn't end it. He stands behind his door, documents in hand, staring at the name on the license longer than necessary. Then he does something that escalates the encounter without realizing it. He calls for backup. The radio crackles. Unit 12 requesting secondary routine traffic stop. Routine, that word will come back in court. The driver watches the patrol car's side mirror as another set of lights appears 2 blocks away. He exhales slowly, not in panic, but in recognition. He's been here before. Not with this officer, not on this street, but in this pattern. When Ellison returns to the window, his posture has changed. Straighter? More authoritative? Less casual. So, he says, you live around here? Yes, sir. How long? A few years. Ellison nods again. Another pause. Another scan of the interior. You got anything illegal in the vehicle tonight? The question lands heavier than the ones before it. No, sir. Mind if I take a look? The driver answers calmly. I do mind. I don't consent to any searches. There's no attitude in his voice. No challenge. Just a statement. Ellison's jaw tightens slightly. The body camera captures it. Why not? Because I don't consent, the man repeats. Ellison steps back half a pace. Step out of the vehicle. The command is abrupt. Unexplained. Am I being detained? The driver asks. Ellison doesn't answer the question. Step out of the vehicle. Now this is the moment where the encounter crosses an invisible line. Not legally yet, but psychologically. The driver opens the door and steps out. Hands. Visible. Calm posture. What's the reason for the stop? Officer? Aosis again. Ellison finally gives one. You rolled through that stop back there. The camera angle makes the lie obvious. The stop sign is visible in the background footage from the dash cam. The car came to a complete stop. Wheels still. Countable seconds. Ellison doesn't know that yet. Backup arrives and parks behind the sedan. Officer Daniel Reeves steps out. Younger, quieter, immediately taking in the scene without speaking. Ellison gestures toward the driver. Stand over there. The man complies. Reeves watches closely as Ellison begins asking questions that have nothing to do with traffic. Where do you work? What do you do for a living? Who owns this car? The driver answers each one evenly. I work in IT. I'm a systems analyst. The car is mine. Ellison raises an eyebrow. Paid off. Yes? Another pause. Another glance at Reeves, as if silently asking for confirmation of something that doesn't exist. Ellison then says the sentence that will later cost him his badge. You fit the description of someone we're looking for. The driver looks directly at him. What description is that? Ellison doesn't answer. Instead, he says, turn around. For what reason? The man asks. Ellison's voice sharpens. Don't argue with me. I'm not arguing. The man replies. I'm asking why. Ellison steps closer. Hands behind your back, Reeves shifts his weight. The camera catches a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. The driver hesitates not in defiance, but in disbelief. Officer, he says, I haven't done anything. Ellison moves behind him anyway. That's when the driver says one final sentence before the encounter becomes irreversible. Your camera's on. You should explain what you're doing. Ellison doesn't respond. He snaps the cuffs shut. And in that moment, long before any supervisor arrives, long before any internal review is opened, that outcome is already sealed. Ellison just doesn't take no shit. The handcuffs click shut with a sound that's louder than it should be in the quiet street. Not because of the metal, but because of what they represent. A decision that can't be undone without consequences. Ellison tightens them an extra notch. Don't move. I'm not resisting, the man says immediately. Calm, slash control. The body cam captures his hands relaxed, fingers open, wrists compliant. Ellison doesn't respond. He guides the man toward the curb, positioning him under the streetlight. Visibility matters now, though Ellison doesn't consciously realize why. Somewhere in his mind, he still believes control equals correctness. Officer Reeves steps closer. What's the charge? Reeves asks quietly. Ellison answers without looking at him. Obstruction. Failure to comply. The words sound official. They're also wrong. The driver now tilts his head slightly, as if processing something. Officer, he says, still measured. I complied with every instruction you gave me. Ellison exhales through his nose. Stop talking. I have the right to ask. Ellison cuts him off. You have the right to remain silent. Reeves glances at the body camera on Ellison's chest. It's blinking red. The silence that follows isn't calm. It's tense. Heavy, the kind that grows dangerous when no one is willing to reassess. Ellison pats the man down quickly. No weapon. No contraband. Nothing. That absence should change the tone. It doesn't. You said you work in a T, Ellison says. Where exactly? The man answers. I work for a cybersecurity firm downtown, Ellison pauses. You carry a badge? No. A weapon? No. Ellison nods slowly, as if disappointed. You ever been arrested before? No. Reeves finally speaks up. Mark, he says. Careful with his tone. What's the original reason again? Ellison turns toward him, irritation flashing across his face. He rolled to stop. Reeves doesn't argue, but his eyes flick toward the dash cam, still recording the intersection behind them. Ellison ignores the look. He walks back to his cruiser and begins typing on the computer. His fingers move faster than his thoughts. In his report, the narrative is already forming. Vehicle failed to stop fully. Driver appeared nervous. Evasive answers. Refused consent. Matched description. Each line sounds reasonable on its own. Together, they form a fiction that the video will later dismantle frame by frame. Back at the curb, the man speaks again. Officer, he says, am I being arrested or detained? Ellison answers without looking up. You're being detained. For what? Specifically. Ellison closes the laptop harder than necessary and walks back over. For obstructing my investigation. The man nods slowly. Then I'd like to invoke my right to remain silent and speak to an attorney. Ellison smirks faintly. You don't need an attorney if you didn't do anything wrong. The line comes out automatically. Habits one he's said dozens of times before. This time, it's recorded. Ellison signals to Reeves. Put him in the back. Reeves hesitates for half a second. Not long enough to stop anything. Long enough to be noticed later. He opens the rear door of the patrol car. Watch your head, Reeves says quietly. The man sits without resistance. As the door closes, the interior camera activates. The angle is tight, the lighting harsh. The man sits upright, breathing steady, Eyes forward. Ellison returns to his cruiser and keys the radio, transporting one mail for obstruction. No mention of evidence. No mention of threat, just authority asserting itself. During the drive, Ellison speaks once. You could have made this easier on yourself. The man looks directly at the camera mounted above him. I did everything right, he says. That's the problem. Ellison doesn't respond. At the station, the process is mechanical. Fingerprints, photographs, property logged, phone placed in a plastic bag. When asked if he has any medical conditions, the man answers calmly. No. Emergency contacts, yes, his name he gives it. The desk sergeant glances at the computer screen. Hold on, she says, frowning slightly. You said obstruction. Ellison nods. She scrolled. There's no resisting charge. No. No weapons. No. No warrants. No. She looks up. Then what exactly did he obstruct Ellison Stephen? He refused the lawful orders. The sergeant doesn't push further. She's seen this before. The paperwork will decide later. The man is placed in a holding cell. Alone. Fluorescent lights, humming overhead, a concrete bench bolted to the wall. He sits down slowly, exhales, and finally allows the tension to show on his face not fear, but frustration. Several hours pass. At 2:17 a.m., a supervisor named Lieutenant Harris reviews the arrest log. Something about it catches his attention. Not the charge, but the lack of substance behind it. He pulls the footage. First, the dash cam, then the body cam, then the cruiser interior. He watches without interruption. He rewinds, pauses, zooms. He watches Ellison claim a stop violation that didn't happen. He watches the refusal of consent turn into suspicion. He watches questions drift away from traffic and toward ownership, income, legitimacy. He watches the cuffs go on without legal foundation. By the time Harris finishes, his jaw is tight. At 3:04 a.m., the man is released without charges. No apology, no explanation. Just a slip of paper and a return of personal property. Outside the station, the night air is cool. Quiet. The man pulls out his phone and makes one call. Yeah, he says when the line connects. I'm out. I need you to pull the footage as soon as it's available. There's a pause, no, he adds. I didn't resist. At all. Another pause. Yes, he says. Every second is on camera. He hangs up. Inside the building, Lieutenant Harris types a short email to Internal Affairs. Subject line. Review requested traffic stop obstruction. Arrest Ellison goes home believing the worst is over. He's wrong. The Internal Affairs review doesn't begin with accusations. It begins with silence. Officer Mark Ellison is called into an interview room 3 days after the arrest. No sirens. No confrontation. Just a small windowless space, a table, 2 chairs, and a camera mounted in the corner. He sits down confident. Defensive, but not worried. He's been through reviews before. Across from him sit 2 people. Lieutenant Harris, who ordered the review, and an internal affairs investigator named Carla Mendoza. She doesn't raise her voice. She doesn't threaten. She lets the footage do the talking. Officer Ellison. She says, we're going to walk through the stops step by step. She presses play. The screen shows the sedan stopping cleanly at the intersection. Mendoza pauses the video. Can you point out where the vehicle failed to stop? Ellison shifts in his chair. Well, sometimes it's hard to tell from that angle. Mendoza doesn't argue. She advances the video frame by frame. The wheels stop. Fully. For over 2 seconds. She looks at him. So the stop was lawful. Ellison nods slowly. Let's continue. The next clip shows Ellison asking where the driver is headed, where he works, whether the car's paid off. Mendoza pauses again. What criminal activity were you investigating at this point, Ellison? He was acting nervous. Mendoza rewinds. The man's voice is calm. His movements slow. Hands visible. Can you show me the nervous behavior? She asks. Ellison doesn't answer. Take on team. The refusal of consent. The immediate escalation. The claim that the man fit the description. Mendoza pauses the video and turns the screen toward Ellison. What description was that? Ellison exhales. There had been reports in the area. Mendoza opens a folder. There were no bolos, no active suspect descriptions, no calls matching this individual within 5 miles in the last 12 hours. She lets the silence sit. Then comes the handcuffing. Mendoza slows the footage. No resistance, she says. No threat. No contraband. No flight risk. She looks up. Explain the probable cause for arrest. Ellison leans back. He was obstructing. How? He kept questioning my authority. Mendoza nods once. Questioning authority is not obstruction. Ellison's jaw tightens. Over the next hour, every justification collapses under the weight of its own inconsistency. Each sentence from Ellison